It's so hard. Yeah, look at this. Come on! What's wrong with that? Too fast, I guess. What? What the hell did I do wrong? This game is too hard.
News review.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
You know, President Kennedy wasn't kidding when he said that thing was going to be hard. Boy, I could barely land that thing. In all seriousness, in 1969, by the time that the Apollo 11 mission finally landed men on the moon, the whole concept of men on the moon was sort of in a fever pitch, and it's no surprise that this concept eventually made its way into a video game. A gentleman by the name of Jim Storer, who was a high school student at the time, in 1969, created a game for the DEC PDP-8 machine, which he called Lunar, or the Lunar Landing game, or something like that. It was a pretty simple text-based affair, written in the focal language that we talked about in our review of the Hammurabi game, but eventually it was converted to BASIC and then to more graphical format. And finally, in 1979, the game was released as a vector graphics-based arcade game by Atari called Lunar Lander, which became very popular. Now, if you look at the instructions, you see it says, insert one or more coins, select game, land any flat surface, even a crash is 5 points, and more points for better landings. Blinking sights multiply scores, low on fuel, add coins. And there's different difficulty levels depending on how hardcore you are. The actual control scheme is pretty cool. There's buttons for rotate left and rotate right. Select and start basically to get the game going. And this cool thing over here controls the thrust when you move it up and down. Abort will let you abort if you're about to crash, but it's pretty useless because it uses up a lot of fuel. So here's what a typical playthrough of the game looks like. You see first it starts at a wide angle view, and you can see different places where you can land. You have to land on a flat horizontal surface, but if you land on a small one with a number by it, like 5x or 2x, you get greater points based on the difficulty of the landing. And you can see my lander coming down. I'm shooting some fire out, using up my fuel. That's by applying thrust. So I can turn the lander left and right with those two buttons, or I can apply thrust to make it go in the direction I want. When you get close enough to the landing surface, the game zooms in to a close-up view, and you get to see pretty cool vector graphics at work when I explode the ship. It disintegrates the component parts there. And then I got 5 points, even though I create a 2-mile crater and I suck. So here I have a copy of Lunar Lander for home platforms. Lunar Lander was ported to a lot of platforms. There's a bunch of different releases for home computers. I happen to like this one for a couple of reasons. One, it's actually called Lunar Lander. Not all of them work because a lot of them are unofficial ports. And second of all, it's published by AI Adventure International, which is the company that Scott Adams put together primarily to publish his own adventure games, which later branched out into lots of different other types of games, adventures from other authors, as well as different types of games, action games, etc. You can see here, if it'll focus, is copyright 1981. That's when this version was put out. There's a couple of different editions of this by Adventure International. I believe this is the first one, but there's also another one that exists with a almost completely different cover. Now, the way that Adventure International published these games in 81, you can see here's the spine. They tried to make it different than the folders which were in production then, and they used styrofoam to sort of make a box. It's not really a box, but basically what they did is here, you have the front cover, you have the back cover, and then there's a piece of styrofoam which is glued to the middle, and the tape is a cutout inside the styrofoam. If it was a disc, it would be taped to the styrofoam. And then you have additional instructions on the inside front cover, potentially on the inside back cover, depending on what game it was we're talking about here. So it's cool packaging, and if you have any early Scott Adams Adventure titles, they might also be in the same exact packaging. They look pretty nicely on the shelf together. So I happen to like this particular edition. If you look on the back here, you see that it was published for TRS-80 and Atari, 8-bit. Actually, another reason why I like this one is because I think it's fitting that, given that it was Atari hit in the arcade, it should be on Atari platform for home computers. So I like the fact that it's Atari 8-bit. You can see the TRS-80 and Atari versions have pretty different screenshots. The TRS-80 one, it says, you'll see the TRS-80 taxed to its graphic limits. And in the Atari one, it says it has color graphics and 4-voice sound. TRS-80 came out in 1977. It was not much for graphics. Atari came out in 80 or 81, I think 80. And the graphics are a heck of a lot better, and there's a lot of possibilities there. It says if you make 5 successful landings, you plant the U.S. flag to the tune of the Star-Spangled Banner. There's a truly incredible display of Atari graphic capabilities. I'm not sure I'm able to pull that off. It also says it requires joysticks, so I'm going to try it without. If you open up the inside, in addition to the tape, there's instructions here for the TRS-80 side. But the TRS-80 instructions also sort of give you the story. Approximately 70 hours into your Apollo mission, you're seated securely, spelled wrong, in your LEM, dropping softly toward one of the many landing sites below. Suddenly, your panel lights indicate the onboard radar is malfunctioning. You've lost readouts for altitude and speeds. Beyond the point to abort the mission. You're forced to attempt a landing using only visual references. Your best chance to watch the video display as Houston's Mission Control follows your descent using a television camera left on the moon by the last mission. Because that's the explanation of what you're seeing in the game. It's Houston watching you. As the letters from the last message disappear from the screen, the image of your craft drifting across the jagged lunar horizon comes into view. Although the moon's gravity is a fraction of Earth's, the main engines work sluggishly to overcome it. Yeah, no kidding. Holding the spacebar now continues the thrust. So these are the TRS-80 instructions. And then on the other side, we have the Atari instructions, which doesn't have a cool story like TRS-80 was. So like TRS-80 did, that's why I read it. It basically tells you how to control the game and whatnot. So with that all in mind, let's take the tape out of here. And let's load it into our cassette player, the way we loaded Jawbreaker in the other video where I showed how to load Atari 8-bit cassette games on modern laptops. And let's get this thing going and see what we come up with. So here's what the game looks like once you load it up in the tape. It says Lunar Lander, copyright 1981, and you can pick different skill levels, novice, scout, captain, or commander, and that one says, oh, come on now, just basically acknowledging that it's pretty darn hard. You're supposed to use a joystick, but I don't have a joystick plugged in. I'm just using the keyboard, which is fine. The only thing is you have to remember that to move the joystick up and down, you sort of have to hold down the keys. Once you select the difficulty, then it draws the star map and the lunar landing field. And it's basically the same as the arcade game with the different numbers for different levels of points. You have your fuel gauge. Instead of giving you all the numbers about your altitude and speed and this and that, it just shows you on the left bottom your landing gauge. If it's red, it means you're going to crash. If it's green, it means you're probably okay. And here I landed successfully. The other thing you'll notice, and this is just a nitpick, is that the Lunar Lander module doesn't actually turn in this version. And it sure shoots jets out of its sides instead of out of the bottom only like in the arcade. Let's see what happens if we go too fast and we crash. Well, that was almost as entertaining as actually landing successfully. So it's a pretty fun game. You unfortunately don't have the cool vector graphics and the zoom in to the closer up view that they have in the arcade version. This is still pretty good approximation, and it's basically the same type of game, same type of controls. So if you don't want to plug in tons of quarters into the arcade, you can play this at home and have a good time. Now what about those harder difficulty levels? So this is the second difficulty level called Scout. And you see the lunar surface has become a little bit more varied. Now there's the 1, the 2, the 3, and even the 4 are somewhat doable, but I tried so many times to get in that 9, and it's basically, I found it to be impossible. I'm sure it's not, but just to get your craft in that little tiny hole, in this case, I didn't even do a good job at all, but you got to be going exactly the right speed, and look at this valiant effort here. Up, down, sideways, but ultimately, I just can't do it. Oh, wait, what's that? It's close. We may make it. Watch out. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. All our passengers are going to make it safely. Yes, yes, here we go. We're sliding in there. Oh! For the sake of completeness, here's the captain difficulty level. Now it gets even crazier. Again, the 1, 2, 3, okay. The 8, maybe, I don't know. But the 9, I don't think anybody's going to get there, and I didn't even bother to try. And now here's the commander difficulty level for the true masochists. Basically, you got to get in this little hole in the ground, and trust me, it's not happening unless you're the best Lunar Lander player to ever walk this Earth. You're just not getting in there. You might get in the little initial hole, but you're not doing much beyond that, so it's not going to end well. Bottom line, this is a fun game. I played it with my son and my nephew, both of whom are 9 years old, and they both had a great time. They were just playing around with it. I think the game still holds up well today. And if you're good enough to be able to land 5 times in a row like it said on the box, you can even see the great Star Spangled Banner flag planting demonstration. So let's check that out. No, I have no idea what just happened. It sounded like they started to play this song, and something exploded. They thought they were about to die, so they quickly skipped to the end of the song, and now they're hightailing it out of here. Anyway, it's a fun little cute animation that wasn't easy to do back in 1981. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it interesting and entertaining, educational. If you did, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, share the video. For me, there's one thing still left to do, which is to see if I can actually finally land this Lunar Lander in the arcade version without smashing up. So I'm going to try to do that over here, and hopefully I can pull it off. We'll see what happens. This is looking good so far. I have a good feeling about it. Running low on fuel, but I'm coming in pretty slow. Applying a lot of thrust, trying to slow down. See if I can make it.
I survived!
Well, my life support is gone, so I'm not going to last too long, but I did survive the crash momentarily. If you like this video, please check out my other videos and the links on this page, and please subscribe. And have a really great day, everybody.